Hi everyone, I'm Naomi Brockwell here chatting with Caitlin Long on behalf of BitPay. She is, of course, with the Wyoming Blockchain Task Force. Thanks so much for chatting with me.
It's my honor as always. Good to see you again.
Absolutely. Now, BitPay has an interesting tie-in with the Wyoming Blockchain Task Force. So explain to me what that is.
Well, I think we've talked previously about how this whole Wyoming ball got rolling. I tried to donate appreciated Bitcoin in the 2017 run-up and ran smack dab into Wyoming having a bad money transmitter law that caused all of the companies to have to leave Wyoming. And I wanted to donate Bitcoin to my alma mater to fund an endowment for female engineers. And they couldn't take it because of the bad money transmitter law. So we got that law changed and 12 others in addition. And since then, but the University of Wyoming Foundation set up a relationship with BitPay. And so when I finally was able to donate the Bitcoin to the University of Wyoming Foundation, it was through BitPay.
Let's just walk through, give an overview of some of the things going on in Wyoming and why people should be looking to Wyoming rather than Switzerland or, some of these other places, because you're really just doing such awesome work getting a foundation that's strong for crypto.
Wyoming isn't going to tax crypto assets in any way. You're still going to, unfortunately, have to deal with federal taxes in the US, but at least at the state level, there aren't any. We defined the legal status of crypto assets so that the lawyers and the banks can't attack us on that front. And we created a fintech sandbox for businesses who will comply with basic fraud and consumer protection laws. But if they're doing something that is not consistent with existing financial regulations, they can do that as long as they tell the regulators, and they can do that for up to 3 years in Wyoming. And we took the money transmission requirements off crypto to crypto transactions, one of 2 states where you don't have money transmission requirements. Probably most importantly is the Special Purpose Depository Institution.
Let's talk about what this institution is. Maybe you can give people a bit of a background over FDIC insurance and how that plays into a lot of the accounts in the crypto space being shut down, for example.
The impetus for this was that the traditional banking industry was slamming doors on crypto companies right and left.
FDIC insurers, they just will not cover banks that deal with the crypto industry. They call it this high-risk industry.
Yeah, there are 30 industries that were deemed high risk that the FDIC regulators
marijuana
and guns and coal and and a whole range of politically so-called incorrect industries. But what Wyoming did is said, all right, FDIC insurance is optional, and we're going to make a 100% reserve requirement bank.
This just opens a bunch of doors for people in the crypto world.
The competitive advantage is that the crypto world, when this first bank is opened in probably mid-2020, or the first group of them, the crypto world will have its own Fed master account, which doesn't exist today.
What is a Fed master account?
The Fed master account allows the crypto companies that have these bank licenses to handle their own wire transfers. They're not reliant upon a third-party bank relationship where the third-party bank can yank the relationship. So they control their own destiny by having a direct relationship with the Fed.
That's huge.
But if you step back and think about the impact of this, the industry will control its own destiny and have its own relationships directly with the Fed. Until the license application process is done, nobody knows definitively that it's going to go through. But from what I understand, the DC regulators are saying, all right, this is the beta test. We're gonna watch this in Wyoming, and if it works, we may open this up to other banks, in a few years. But if it doesn't work, then it's just in Wyoming, right?
I believe that this means that they become a state chartered bank. There are certain relationships like to do with interstate banking that then come into play. So explain what the consequences of this are.
This is where I would jokingly called it the bit license killer. There actually is federal law that prohibits states from discriminating against other state chartered banks.
Let's connect the dots here. The bit license drove everything out of the state of New York. And what you're saying is that now people in New York actually can't deny services to state chartered banks in other states. Is that what you're saying?
Ding, 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 ding.
I mean, that's kind of awesome, Caitlin.
Well, again, until somebody applies and gets a license and goes through the process, we won't know definitively. Some of the companies rush to get regulated. I think the ones that waited and didn't do that are going to be better off, because they're going to end up with the Wyoming license, and that's going to open more doors. We think this opens doors to 42 different states without having to get incremental money transmission licenses. To be fair, it is a lot higher hurdle to get a bank license than to get a BIT license. So it's going to cost more in capital commitment and regulatory hassles for companies that do get these Wyoming Speedy Bank. That's the affectionate nickname we've called them, Speedy Bank licenses. Money transmission licenses are the easiest to get, then trust company licenses, and then state chartered banks, then national banks, and then sort of the SIFIs, which are the systemically important financial institutions that are primary dealers that deal directly with the Fed and the U.S. Treasury. So basically, as you go up that pyramid, the capital requirements increase and the regulatory headaches increase, regulatory requirements increase. So the BIT license is somewhere between the bottom two. It's a money transmission license, but not as high as a trust company license. But the state chartered bank trumps both of those. For digital securities specifically, the SEC released a guidance jointly with FINRA in July. And there was a very interesting footnote 13, I think I remember we tweeted back and forth about it, that said that for digital securities, there is something called a good control location that you have to have if you're custodying something. How do you create a good control location for a digital asset that doesn't exist in paper form? And the answer is the SEC and FINRA said in footnote 13 that banks have a safe harbor for good control location. But as we talked about at the beginning of this interview, the FDIC is not allowing many FDIC insured banks, actually any in this case, to custody crypto inside of the bank's trust powers. And so as a result, there is one and exactly one type of bank license that actually fits that bill. The existing custodians can't do it under their regulatory requirements. So we're going to build this custody haven in the state of Wyoming, which actually respects how the crypto industry works and the ethos of the crypto industry.
Wyoming is the only place that is allowing these right now. So I would say that in America, it's well and truly the best place for crypto right now.
Oh, that's very clear across the board. There are other states now that are copying us, but we are, I'm very cognizant of the attack vectors on Wyoming. We talked previously, and I think in our last interview, about what the Uniform Law Commission is doing to try to, the securities industry wants to pigeonhole all crypto into using securities intermediaries to get, in order to get legal clarity. And obviously, we all know that makes zero sense. And right now, the SEC custody rule does require a third-party institution to custody the assets. Since that's the reality of what we're dealing with now, and I don't expect that law to change anytime soon, we tried to figure out, all right, how do we allow institutions to invest in this asset class, broadly speaking, both virtual currencies and digital securities, and do it in a way that complies with the custody rule, but doesn't require us to end up in a debtor-creditor relationship with our custodian, which is exactly what the existing traditional securities industry does. When you put money into your brokerage account, you're in a debtor-creditor relationship with your broker, and they're in a debtor-creditor relationship with their custodian. Because remember, they have to hold the assets at a third party if they're managing your money. So there are just debtor-creditor relationships all over the place where there don't need to be debtor-creditor relationships. And so what we're doing is a very different legal regime that respects the investor's rights, respects the property rights, allows you to retain legal title to the assets. Even if you hand over your private keys, you have the ability to get your actual UTXOs back. So in other words, they can put it in cold storage in a vault and give you your same private keys and your same UTXOs, right? And so this is basically the old money warehouses that existed back when people went into the gold money warehousing businesses. It's the same concept. And you'll have the option to do that in Wyoming.
I think that is so awesome. As I've said before, Caitlin, I love the work that you are doing in Wyoming. You're such a trailblazer, and you've set up this amazing foundation that other states can copy. So thank you so much for everything that you're doing. It's just tremendous, and thanks for chatting with me.
It's my pleasure. As always, Naomi, good to see you again.